Girls in the Demoiselle. Let's talk about the boys in the grade 2 Remsen, also a mile and an eighth, 2-year-olds. Post-time favorite in here, you had two horses that took the lion's share of the money, one of them being Network Effect, who ultimately was the even money favorite come post-time, and then also Maximus Mischief, who looked like he could be anything in his first two lifetime starts down at Parks. Now you had to deal with, let's call a spade, legitimately talented horses this time around. You had to deal with two turns, and you had to deal with a mile and an eighth. All of that being thrown at him in a different jurisdiction, and he handled it all beautifully. Here's the stretch run of this year's Remsen.
On at the top of the stretch, Maximus Mischief is asked to run now, gets a reminder and opens up a length. Tax is second, 5 back to Network Effect in third, followed by Bourbon War. They're coming to the 16th pole, and it's Maximus Mischief proving he's the real deal as he opens up late. A belated rally from Network Effect. Maximus Mischief wins the Remsen. Network Effect found him.
An impressive effort for Maximus Mischief. He gets the job done at odds of 7-5. Network Effect, the even money favorite for Chad Brown, comes with a little bit of a belated rally to finish second. And Tax, the horse that was up there pressing Maximus Mischief, he actually ran quite well. I thought this was an impressive effort from him. He finishes third at odds of 17-1. Let's talk about Maximus Mischief, a perfect 3-for-3 lifetime, just under $200,000 in career earnings. Owned by Cash's King LLC and LC Racing, trained by Butch Reed, bred by Martha Jane Mulholland in Kentucky. Ridden to victory by Frankie Pennington, and the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card, he's by Into Mischief out of a Song and a Prayer mare named Raina Maria. 97 Beyer speed, figure 110 time form US rating for the victory here with Maximus Mischief in the Remsen. Now again, this is going to be an interesting sort of study to take a look at going forward as more and more time goes by and as these horses return, because again, I continue to bring it up, the difference in the way the track played early on as opposed to later, that could lend itself to, it could be a little bit more difficult for the figure makers to end up coming to a conclusion here. So the discrepancy between the two figs, again, this is one of those instances where it's too early to definitively say one way or the other which one is high and which one is low. The Beyer number is at least on par with what he had been earning prior. I believe he earned a 98 in his most recent start. He comes here, he earns a 97. The 110 time form US rating, if you were to take, again, I've used that rough 20-point difference between the two, it's usually pretty accurate. If you take 20 out of the 110, that puts you down around a 90, so perhaps the Beyer is on the slightly inflated side. On the flip side, if you tack 20 onto the 97, you're looking at a massive, massive number from a time form standpoint, about the 117. So time will tell. You don't know anything just yet, but at the end of the day, regardless, it was a promising enough effort from this horse. Timeform US had all of the fractions color-coded blue, meaning the pace was soft. And when you look at the fractions, they can kind of hold up to that. You look and see 25, 50 and 3, 14 and 3 for 3/4. They stopped the clock in 151 and 1. Now you compare that to the fillies who ran earlier in the card when the track was considerably different. We're talking just an eighth of a mile difference between the two of them. Maximus Mischief, it sounds like, according to trainer Butch Reed, he's likely to run in either the Holy Bull or the Fountain of Youth down at Gulfstream Park prior to his start in the Florida Derby. The Florida Derby is on March the 30th in 2019, and that would be his, fingers crossed, final prep leading into the Kentucky Derby. This is a horse that he popped back to his left lead at the end of the race, but given the racing surface, given the way that he was handling two turns for the first time, usually I don't want to see that. But at the same time, when he did it, his ears were up and flickering around. So there's a part of me that wonders if he's just a little bit on the green side, and he was also probably on the tired side as well. He continued on and galloped out very, very strong. So it is one of those instances where maybe I'm not so quick in a situation like this to look at it and say, terrible, hated to see that. I think it could be a combination of things, and I'll withhold judgment. We'll wait and see. If he does something like that when he finally does return to the races here in a few months, then I'll be a little bit more concerned. But with this race, I thought this was a very, very strong effort, and it at least, at the very least, backs up that this is a legitimate racehorse. You know, I hate to say it, but you're always a little bit skeptical, a little bit dubious when they face lesser horses at a smaller circuit. You know, is everything actually up and up as far as the figures are concerned? Is he actually as good as he has looked on the racetrack? Because he's looked awesome in his first two starts. Then he comes out here and looks quite well here in the Remsen on Saturday. I thought this was a big league effort. And I think if you're looking at 2-year-olds going forward, you have to look at Maximus Mischief as one of the best ones in the country. Network Effect, I thought in the grand scheme of things, he ran okay, not great. He did finish with some late interest. He got his final 8th in 12:31 as opposed to Maximus Mischief's 12:86. But when you consider Network Effect was sort of in that drafting position in behind horses, he was hard ridden for about 3/8 of a mile, and he finally did come on with a little bit of energy at the end. He earns a 94 buyer. So again, it's going to be very difficult to analyze this race until they do come back. I'm going to be very, very interested to see what this race ultimately produces, because we have seen time and time again, I hate to say it, but the New York races this time of year for the 2-year-olds, they just generally have not held up recently anyway. We'll find out how that whole thing shakes down. The rest of the field thought they were all just okay. Again, I thought Tax ran quite well. Bourbon War, decent enough effort, nothing spectacular. Jungle Warrior, probably going to want to go back to the grass with him. In the grand scheme of things, this was all about Maximus Mischief. I thought he was very impressive, and I think you have to keep him on the short list of horses, soon to be 3-year-olds, that you want to be looking and considering serious threats for a race like the Kentucky Derby should he get there. It sounds like it will be one prep, then the Florida Derby, then the Kentucky Derby. Got a long way to go, but Maximus Mischief has already placed himself in that sort of upper echelon for potential Derby starters. 97 buyer, 110 time form U.S. rating, winning this year's Grade 2 Remsen.